I got into my husband's car and found a tube of personal lubricant in the glove compartment. I didn't say a word. I just secretly replaced it with industrial superglue. And what happened next forced my son to make an emergency call as a firefighter to his girlfriend's house, only to find his father stuck inside her. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. Before we begin, let me say a prayer for you, my dear viewer. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May peace follow you wherever you go, and may protection cover you and your loved ones like a shield. May your heart find rest, your mind find clarity, and your spirit find strength to face whatever battles lie ahead. In Jesus' name, amen. Now let's dive into this story. The smell of jasmine from the garden used to calm me. Now it just reminded me of all the nights I spent alone, waiting for Grant to come home. Our bedroom window overlooked the rose bushes I'd planted when we first bought this house in Charleston, 22 years ago, back when his promises felt like gospel and my body still responded to his touch with the kind of hunger that made time disappear. I was folding laundry when I found the hotel keycard. It slipped out of Grant's jeans pocket, hitting the hardwood floor with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than thunder. The Riverside Inn, room 318. My hands froze, a white undershirt clutched between my fingers. I stood there staring at that little plastic card like it was a bomb that had just gone off in my living room. Grant worked in insurance, boring, stable, predictable. He'd never stayed at the Riverside Inn for business. I knew this because he always complained about their parking fees whenever we drove past it. Ruthie, that place charges $20 just to park. Highway robbery. That's what he'd said, 2 months ago, over breakfast, while buttering his toast and scrolling through his phone with that distracted look he always wore these days. I picked up the keycard, turning it over in my palm. My chest tightened. My throat felt like someone had wrapped their hands around it and squeezed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I didn't. I just stood there, silent, feeling my world crack open. My phone buzzed on the dresser. A text from Grant. "Working late tonight. Client dinner. Don't wait up." I stared at the message. Then at the keycard, then back at the message. My hands started trembling. "Ruth? You still home?" Grant's voice floated up from the kitchen. He'd come back. For something. His laptop, probably. He was always forgetting it. I shoved the keycard into my bra and walked downstairs, forcing my face into something resembling normalcy. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he could hear it. "Yeah, just finishing the laundry," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. He was standing by the counter, tying his tie, his reflection sharp in the kitchen window. He looked tired, older. The grey at his temples had spread, creeping into his sideburns. But he was still handsome in that rugged, weathered way that had first drawn me to him at a church BBQ when I was 23, back when I believed love lasted forever. "You okay?" he asked, glancing at me briefly before returning his attention to his tie. "Fine. Just tired." He nodded, grabbed his laptop bag and kissed my forehead. It felt mechanical, like checking a box on a to-do list. Kiss wife. Check. "Love you, Ruthie." "Love you too." The door closed. The house fell silent. And I stood there, hand pressed against my chest where the keycard was hidden, feeling the sharp edges dig into my skin. I didn't cry. Not yet. Crying would come later, in waves, when the shock wore off and reality set in. For now, I needed answers. I needed to know if what I was thinking was true, or if I was just being paranoid. I went to Grant's office, a small room off the hallway that he'd claimed as his sanctuary. He kept it locked, but I knew where he hid the key, under the ceramic turtle on the bookshelf. A gift from Troy when he was 8. The office smelled like leather and old coffee. His desk was cluttered with files, insurance forms, pens scattered like casualties. I opened his laptop. No password. He trusted me. Or maybe he was just careless. Maybe he never thought I'd look. I clicked through his emails. Work, work, spam, work. Then, subject, last night. From B. Collins, healthfirstcharleston.com. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped the mouse. I clicked it open. Grant, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Troy's working a double shift tonight, so we have the place to ourselves. Come over around 8. Miss you already. Becca. The room tilted. My vision blurred. I read it again, and again, and again. Each word felt like a knife twisting deeper. Becca. Rebecca Collins. Troy's girlfriend. The sweet, bubbly nurse he'd been dating for 6 months. The one who brought homemade lasagna to our Sunday dinners and called me Mama Ruth. That Becca. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen, feeling something dark and cold settle in my chest. Not sadness. Not yet. This was something sharper. Something dangerous. Rage. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. Time felt like it had stopped. All I could do was stare at those words on the screen. Last night was incredible. Troy's working a double shift. Come over around 8. My husband, my son's girlfriend, in her bed. The thought made bile rise in my throat. Ruth? You home? I slammed the laptop shut and spun around. Troy was standing in the doorway, still in his firefighter uniform, his face flushed from the heat. My beautiful boy, my son, who looked so much like his father. Hey, baby, what are you doing here? I forced a smile, standing quickly, positioning myself between him and the desk. Just got off shift early. Thought I'd grab some of your pot roast before heading to Becca's. He grinned, that boyish smile that made my heart ache. She's cooking tonight? Nah, we're ordering pizza. But you know I can't pass up your pot roast, Ma. I nodded, following him to the kitchen, my mind spinning. Troy had no idea. None. He thought Becca was waiting for him with pizza and Netflix. He thought his father was at a client dinner. He had no idea that in a few hours his father would be at Becca's place, in her bed. While Troy sat on her couch eating my pot roast. The thought made me want to scream. Ma, you okay? You look pale. I glanced at him, at those concerned brown eyes, and forced another smile. Just tired, sweetheart. Long day. He kissed my cheek and grabbed the Tupperware of pot roast from the fridge. You're the best. Love you, Ma. Love you too, baby. The door closed, and I stood there in the kitchen, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to run after him. I wanted to tell him the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not without proof. I needed more. More evidence. More confirmation. Because what I was thinking, what I was planning, required absolute certainty. I couldn't just confront Grant with an email. He'd deny it. Gaslight me. Tell me I was overreacting, being paranoid, reading too much into things. No, I needed something undeniable. I grabbed my phone and called Patty. She picked up on the second ring. Ruth, girl, what's going on? Patty Monroe had been my best friend since college. She was bold, fierce, and had zero tolerance for nonsense. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was her. Patty, I need your help. Can you come over? There was a pause. Then, Be there in 20. Patty arrived with a bottle of wine and a look that said she already knew this wasn't a casual visit. She poured us each a glass, sat down across from me at the kitchen table and said, "Talk to me." I told her everything. The keycard, the email, Becca, Troy. By the time I finished, Patty's face was a mask of fury. "That bastard," she hissed. "And with Troy's girlfriend? Ruth, that's evil." "I know. What are you going to do?" I looked at her, my jaw set. "I'm going to hire a private investigator." Patty raised her eyebrows. "You serious?" "Dead serious. I need proof, Patty. Photos, videos, audio, everything." She nodded slowly. "I know a guy. Dwight Monroe. He's good, discreet. He helped my cousin catch her husband with his secretary. Can you get me his number?" "Already texting it to you." The next morning, I met Dwight at a small coffee shop downtown. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He shook my hand and said, "Mrs. Harper, Patty told me a little about your situation. I'm sorry you're going through this." "Thank you. I just need the truth." "That's what I do. Give me a week. I'll follow your husband, document everything, and get you answers." I handed him a photo of Grant and Becca's address. "Her name is Rebecca Collins. She's a nurse at Health First Charleston. My son's girlfriend." Dwight's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of sympathy in his eyes. "I'll get started today." The next 5 days were torture. I went through the motions, cooking, cleaning, smiling at Grant when he came home late, smelling like lavender body wash that wasn't mine. "How was work?" I'd ask. "Exhausting," he'd reply, kissing my forehead like he was checking off a box. And every night, I'd lock myself in the bathroom and check my phone, waiting for updates from Dwight. The first photo came on day 3, Grant and Becca at a restaurant, holding hands across the table, her laughing at something he said, her eyes sparkling. I stared at the image until my vision blurred. That should have been me. That was supposed to be us. Day 4 brought video footage. Grant and Becca leaving a hotel together, his arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. I watched it on repeat. Each loop driving the knife deeper. How long had this been going on? How many lies had he told me? But it was day 5 that broke me. Dwight sent an audio file with a single message. "You need to hear this." I put in my earbuds and pressed play. Grant's voice. "Once the business is transferred and Ruth's out of the picture, we'll be set." Becca's voice. "And Troy? What about him?" Grant's laugh. "Troy's too stupid to notice anything. He thinks you're an angel. By the time he figures it out, we'll be long gone." Becca. "What about the house?" Grant. "It's in both our names, but I've been working with a lawyer. I can get her to sign it over without her realizing. She trusts me too much." Becca. "God, I love how smart you are." Grant. "Just a few more weeks, babe. Then it's you and me. No more sneaking around." "No more Ruth." I ripped the earbuds out, my hands shaking so violently I dropped the phone. It clattered on the bathroom floor, the sound echoing in the small space. I slid down the wall, sitting on the cold tile, and let the tears come. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting to steal everything. The business I'd helped build, the house I'd turned into a home, my entire life. And Troy? My beautiful, kind, trusting son. He was just collateral damage to them. I sat there on that bathroom floor, crying, until there were no more tears left. And then something shifted inside me. The sadness hardened into something else. Something cold. Something dangerous. Rage. I stood up, wiped my face, picked up my phone. and called Dwight. "I need copies of everything," I said, my voice steady. "Every photo, every video, that audio file. All of it." "You got it, Mrs. Harper. What are you planning?" I smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. Justice. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Grant, listening to him snore, and thought about the past 22 years. The late nights I'd spent balancing the books for his insurance agency while he worked late. The times I'd bitten my tongue when he dismissed my opinions. The years I'd poured into being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect partner. And this was how he repaid me, by plotting to destroy me. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, the career I'd given up to support his business, the friends I'd lost because I was too busy taking care of him and Troy, the dreams I'd buried because Grant always came first. And now I realized it had all been for nothing, because he never loved me. Not really. I was just convenient, a placeholder until something better came along. And Becca? She was just young and stupid enough to believe his lies. The next morning, Grant announced he was going fishing with some buddies on Saturday. "Fishing?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Since when do you fish?" He laughed, waving me off. "Bill's been bugging me to go for months. Figure I'll finally give it a shot." Liar. "Sounds fun," I said sweetly. "Catch something good." He kissed my forehead and left. The moment the door closed, I grabbed my phone and texted Dwight. "He's meeting her Saturday. Follow him." Saturday morning, I woke up early. Grant was already dressed, his fishing gear, borrowed from God knows where, by the door. "You're up early," he said, surprised. "Couldn't sleep? Want some coffee before you go?" "Sure." I made him a cup. Extra sweet, just the way he liked it. "Thanks, Ruthie. You're the best." I smiled. "Drive safe." He kissed me and left. And the moment his truck disappeared down the street, I grabbed my purse and headed to the garage. Grant's car was still parked inside. He'd taken the truck to keep up the fishing ruse. I opened the glove compartment, and there it was. A tube of personal lubricant. Half used, the cap loose. I stared at it, my stomach turning. This was it. The final piece. I grabbed the tube and went inside. In the kitchen, I pulled out a small bottle of industrial superglue I'd bought at the hardware store earlier that week. My hands were steady as I unscrewed the cap on the lubricant and poured out the contents. Then, carefully, I filled it with the superglue. I tested it. The consistency was close enough. At a glance, no one would notice. I screwed the cap back on, wiped it clean, and placed it back in the glove compartment exactly where I'd found it. Then I waited. I went back inside, made myself a cup of tea, and sat at the kitchen table. My phone was in my hand, Dwight's number ready to call. I looked around the house, the home I'd built, the life I'd created, and I thought about what was about to happen. Grant thought he was so smart. He thought he could betray me, steal from me, destroy my son, and get away with it. He thought I was weak, naive, too trusting to fight back. But he was wrong. I wasn't the same Ruth he'd married 22 years ago. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, a woman who refused to be a victim. And today, Grant was going to learn that lesson the hard way. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, hit that like button, because this story is for you. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. Dwight had texted me 15 minutes ago. Subject on the move, heading toward Maple Street. Grant. He was on his way to Becca's, right on schedule. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from anticipation, from the knowledge that in less than an hour Everything would change. Grant thought he was so clever. He thought he'd planned the perfect escape: steal my business, take my money, run off with a girl half his age, and leave me with nothing. But he'd underestimated me. I glanced at the clock. 12:17 p.m. Troy's fire station was only 10 minutes from Becca's townhouse. I'd made sure of that when I called in the gas leak. Any minute now, they'd get the call. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed to my car. I had to see this. I had to watch as Grant's carefully constructed lies came crashing down around him. I parked 3 blocks away from Becca's townhouse, in a spot where I could see her front door but remain hidden. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. At 12:23, Grant's truck pulled up. I watched him park, check his reflection in the rearview mirror, and smooth his hair. He looked excited, happy, like a man about to see his lover, not betray his wife and son. He walked to Becca's door and knocked. She opened it almost immediately, wearing a silk robe that left nothing to the imagination. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She'd dressed up for him, for my husband. She pulled him inside, her hand sliding around his neck, and the door closed. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, imagining what was happening inside. Were they kissing? Were they laughing about me? Were they celebrating their plan to destroy my life? My phone buzzed. A text from Dwight. Fire department dispatch just went out. Gas leak at 348 Maple Street. Your son's unit is responding. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It was happening. At 12:41, I heard the sirens. A fire truck turned onto Maple Street, lights flashing, sirens wailing. My heart stopped. Troy was on that truck. My son. My beautiful, trusting son, who had no idea what he was about to walk into. The truck stopped in front of Becca's townhouse. I watched as Troy jumped out, his crew following behind him. He looked so professional in his uniform, so confident. He had no idea his entire world was about to shatter. One of the firefighters, a younger guy named Jimmy, knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. Troy pulled out a key. Becca had given it to him months ago, just in case of emergencies. I watched him unlock the door and push it open, and then I heard it, screaming. Becca's voice, high-pitched and panicked. "Help! Oh my God, help us!" Grant's voice, deeper, angrier. "What the hell is this? What's happening?" I couldn't see inside from where I was parked, but I could imagine it. I could picture the look on Troy's face as he walked into that living room and saw his father and his girlfriend stuck together. Literally stuck. Unable to separate. The screaming got louder, more frantic. I heard Troy's voice, raw with shock and pain. "Dad? Becca? What is this?" I closed my eyes. Tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of rage, tears of vindication, tears of justice. Grant had done this to himself. He'd chosen this. And now he was going to pay. More sirens. An ambulance pulled up, followed by another fire truck. Neighbors started pouring out of their houses, phones in hand, recording everything. Within minutes, this would be all over social media. Grant's reputation, his precious reputation, would be destroyed. I watched as paramedics rushed inside with a stretcher. A few minutes later, they emerged, struggling under the weight of 2 bodies. Grant and Becca, still stuck together, covered with a sheet, but not enough to hide what had happened. Becca was crying, her face red and swollen. Grant's face was pale, his eyes wide with humiliation. And Troy, my poor Troy, stood on the lawn, hands on his knees, looking like he was about to be sick. One of the firefighters put a hand on Troy's shoulder, but he shrugged it off. He looked up at the stretcher, at his father and girlfriend being loaded into the ambulance, and I saw something break inside him. The trust, the innocence, the belief that the people he loved would never hurt him. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to hold him and tell him it would be okay. But I couldn't. Not yet. He couldn't know I'd orchestrated this. Not now. Maybe not ever. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing. The crowd of neighbors stood there, whispering, pointing, laughing. Grant's humiliation was complete. And I sat in my car, watching it all unfold, feeling a cold satisfaction settle over me like a blanket. My phone rang. Troy. I answered, forcing my voice to sound surprised. Hey, baby. What's wrong? Mom. His voice cracked. Mom, I need you. Can you come to Charleston Memorial? What happened? Are you hurt? No, He choked on a sob. It's Dad. And Becca. I can't explain. Just please come. I'm on my way. I hung up and started the car, my hands steady now. The hardest part was over. Now came the performance. I arrived at Charleston Memorial 20 minutes later. Troy was in the waiting room, still in his uniform, his face buried in his hands. I rushed to him, pulling him into my arms. Troy, sweetheart, what happened? He pulled back, his eyes red and swollen. Mom, they were... He couldn't finish. He just shook his head, tears streaming down his face. I held him tighter, stroking his hair the way I used to when he was little. It's okay, baby. Whatever it is, we'll get through it. Dad was with Becca. Mum, they were stuck together, literally stuck, and I had to see it. I had to see my own father with my girlfriend. I closed my eyes, letting the appropriate amount of shock cross my face. What? Troy, that can't be true. It is. I saw it. Everyone saw it. The whole crew, the neighbors, everyone. I felt him shaking in my arms, and despite everything, despite the rage and the betrayal and the calculated revenge, my heart broke for him. Because this part wasn't an act. This part was real. My son was in pain, and there was nothing I could do to take it away. I'm so sorry, baby, I whispered. I'm so sorry. A doctor emerged from the emergency room, looking uncomfortable. Mrs. Harper. I stood up, keeping one arm around Troy. Yes? Your husband and Miss Collins have been separated. They're both stable. Minor skin abrasions, but nothing serious. We've given them ointment and pain medication. They'll need to follow up with their primary care physicians, but they should be fine. Can I see him? The doctor nodded. Room 12. But, Mrs. Harper, I should warn you, there's a police officer with them. They're trying to determine if this was, if there was any foul play involved. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face neutral. Foul play? The adhesive used wasn't standard lubricant. It was industrial-grade superglue. Someone replaced the contents of the bottle. I let my eyes widen, my hand flying to my mouth. Oh my God. Who would do something like that? The doctor shook his head. That's what they're trying to figure out. I walked down the hallway to room 12, my heels clicking on the linoleum floor. A police officer stood outside, a young woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. Mrs. Harper? Yes. I'm Officer Daniels. I need to ask you a few questions. Of course. Anything I can do to help. She pulled out a notepad. When was the last time you saw your husband today? This morning, around 10 a.m. He said he was going fishing with his brother. And you believed him? I paused, letting just the right amount of hesitation show. I didn't have a reason not to. Officer Daniels studied me. Mrs. Harper, were you aware your husband was having an affair? I looked down at my hands, my voice breaking slightly. I suspected, but I didn't have proof. And Miss Collins? Did you know her? She's my son's girlfriend, or she was. Officer Daniels wrote something down. Did you have access to your husband's vehicle? My heart started racing, but I kept my voice steady. Yes, we share a garage, but I haven't been in his car in weeks. And do you own any industrial adhesives? I manage a bakery. We use adhesive to repair display cases occasionally, but I don't keep it at home. It was a lie, but a necessary one. I'd already thrown away the bottle, wiped down the glove compartment, and made sure there was no evidence linking me to the swap. Officer Daniels closed her notepad. Thank you, Mrs. Harper. We'll be in touch if we have any more questions. She stepped aside, letting me enter the room. Grant was lying in the hospital bed, his face pale, his eyes avoiding mine. There were bandages on his arms, and I didn't want to think about where else. I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed, my expression cold. Ruth? He started, his voice hoarse. Don't! I cut him off. Don't you dare try to explain this to me. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been having an affair with our son's girlfriend. You've been planning to steal the business and leave me with nothing. And now you've humiliated yourself, our son, and our entire family. His face went white. How did you... I pulled out my phone and played the audio file Dwight had sent me. Grant's voice filled the room. Once the business is transferred and Ruth's out of the picture, we'll be set. His eyes widened. Where did you get that? I hired a private investigator. I have photos, videos, audio recordings, everything. Grant's hands started shaking. Ruth, please, we can work this out. I made a mistake. A mistake? I laughed, but it was cold, bitter. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash. A mistake is leaving the lights on. This is betrayal. This is calculated, deliberate cruelty. He opened his mouth to respond, but I held up my hand. I'm divorcing you. I've already filed the papers. And you're going to give me everything I'm entitled to. 60% of the business, the house, full control of our savings, and you're going to stay away from Troy. Ruth, you can't. I can. And I will. Because if you don't, I'll release the hospital footage to every client we have. Your reputation will be destroyed. You'll never work in insurance again. Grant stared at me, his face a mask of shock and fear. He'd never seen this side of me before, the strong side, the side that refused to be a victim. Sign the papers, Grant, or lose everything. He signed. I watched him scrawl his name on the divorce documents, his hand shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. When he finished, I took the papers, folded them carefully, and put them in my purse. Goodbye, Grant, I said, my voice steady. I hope she was worth it. I walked out of the room without looking back. Troy was still in the waiting room, his head in his hands. I sat down next to him and wrapped my arm around his shoulders. Come on, baby. Let's go home. He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to... You don't have to know right now. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time. He nodded, and I helped him to his feet. We walked out of the hospital together, into the bright afternoon sunlight. The world looked the same, but everything had changed. That night, I made Troy his favorite dinner, pot roast with mashed potatoes and green beans. He picked at his food, barely eating, his mind somewhere far away. Mum? He said finally, his voice quiet. Yes, baby? Did you know? About Dad and Becca? I hesitated. This was the moment I had to lie to my son. The moment I had to pretend I was just as shocked as he was. I suspected, I said carefully. But I didn't know for sure. He nodded, accepting the lie. How could he do this to us? How could they? I don't know, Troy. Some people are selfish. Some people only think about themselves. I loved her, he whispered. I was going to propose. My heart broke all over again. I'm so sorry. Sweetheart? He wiped his eyes, his jaw clenching. I hate him. I hate both of them. That's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. Will it ever stop hurting? I reached across the table and took his hand. Eventually. It'll take time. But it will get better. I promise. He squeezed my hand, and we sat there in silence. Two broken people trying to figure out how to heal. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. Over the next few weeks, Grant's humiliation spread like wildfire. The hospital footage, courtesy of Jimmy, the young firefighter who documented the scene, made its way onto social media. Within days, it had thousands of views. People shared it, laughed at it, turned Grant into a meme. His clients started calling, asking for their policies to be transferred to other agents. His reputation, built over 22 years, crumbled in a matter of days. Becca fled Charleston the moment she was released from the hospital. I heard through Patty that she'd moved to Atlanta, changed her number, and deleted all her social media accounts. She couldn't face the shame. And Troy? He slowly started to heal. He threw himself into his work, spent more time at the fire station, and eventually started dating again. A lovely nurse named Jade, who treated him with the kindness and respect he deserved. As for me, I took over the insurance agency full-time. With 60% ownership, I became the majority shareholder. I rebranded the company, brought in new clients, and within 6 months, business was booming. I also started doing things for myself. I joined a pottery class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. I joined a book club with Patty and met other women who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger. I started running in the mornings, feeling my body get stronger with each mile. And slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the Ruth who'd spent 22 years catering to Grant's every need, but a new Ruth, a stronger Ruth. A Ruth who knew her worth and refused to settle for less. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in my kitchen, drinking coffee and watching the sun rise over the rose bushes I'd planted all those years ago. The jasmine was in full bloom, filling the air with its sweet scent. It didn't remind me of loneliness anymore. It reminded me of freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from Troy. Morning, Mum. Love you? I smiled and typed back, Love you too, baby. And in that moment, I realized something. Grant hadn't destroyed me. He'd tried. He'd plotted and schemed and betrayed me in the worst possible way. But he'd failed. Because I was still here, still standing, still strong. And he? He was living in a cheap apartment, his reputation in ruins, his son refusing to speak to him, his lover long gone. He'd lost everything. And I'd gained myself. 6 months after the divorce, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window, the same window that used to feel like a prison. Now it felt like a frame for something new, something mine. I stretched, feeling muscles I'd forgotten I had. The running had done that. Every morning at 6, I laced up my sneakers and ran through the neighborhood, watching Charleston wake up. At first, I could barely make it to the end of the block without gasping for air. Now I was running 5 miles like it was nothing. My body was changing, getting stronger. And so was I. I got out of bed and walked to the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked different, not older, not worn down, but powerful, confident. Like she'd been through hell and come out the other side holding a torch. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Downstairs I made coffee, the good kind, the expensive French roast I used to save for special occasions, because Grant always said it was a waste of money. But now, every morning was a special occasion. Every day I woke up free was worth celebrating. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and my laptop, reviewing the agency's quarterly reports. Business was up 30%. 30. In 6 months. Clients who'd been considering leaving when the scandal broke had stayed. New clients were calling daily, saying they'd heard about the woman who'd rebuilt an empire after her husband tried to destroy her. Integrity, they said. That's what they wanted. Someone they could trust. I'd rebranded the company as Harper and Associates, removed Grant's name entirely. It felt good, like erasing him from my life one letter at a time. My phone buzzed. A text from Patty. Book club tonight. Don't forget. And wear something cute. Janet's bringing her single brother. I laughed. Patty had made it her mission to get me back into the dating world. I wasn't ready, not yet. Maybe not ever. And that was okay. For the first time in my life, I was enough. Just me. No husband to validate me. No man to complete me. Just Ruth, standing on her own 2 feet. And it felt amazing. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you won't want to miss the ending. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. That afternoon, I had a meeting with a potential client, a woman in her 50s who'd been referred by one of my existing clients. Her name was Linda, and she walked into my office with the same haunted look I'd seen in my own mirror months ago. "Mrs. Harper," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Thank you for seeing me. Please, call me Ruth." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "What can I do for you?" She sat down, hands twisting in her lap. "I need business insurance. My husband and I own a restaurant, and I want to make sure I'm protected." I nodded, pulling out the necessary forms. But as I looked at her, really looked at her, I saw more than a potential client. I saw myself 6 months ago, scared, uncertain, trying to protect herself from something she didn't want to name. "Linda," I said gently, "is everything okay?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I found texts on his phone. He's been seeing someone, a waitress at our restaurant, and I think he's planning to cut me out of the business." My chest tightened. I knew that pain. I'd lived it. I set down my pen and leaned forward. "Tell me everything." She talked for an hour about the late nights, the excuses, the way he'd stopped looking at her, the feeling of being invisible in her own marriage. Every word was a mirror of my own experience. When she finished, she wiped her eyes and said, "I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for this. I should just—" "No," I interrupted. "Don't apologize. You're not alone in this. I know exactly what you're going through." She looked up at me, hope flickering in her eyes. "You do?" I nodded. "My ex-husband had an affair with our son's girlfriend. He tried to steal the business we built together. But I fought back. And I won." Linda's mouth fell open. You're that Ruth Harper? I heard about what happened. Everyone has." "Then you know I understand." I reached across the desk and took her hand. "And I'm going to help you. Not just with insurance, but with everything." I referred Linda to my lawyer, who specialized in protecting women's assets in divorce cases. I gave her Dwight's number. I connected her with Patty and the other women in my book club, all of whom had their own stories of survival and strength. And as I watched her walk out of my office with her shoulders a little straighter, her head a little higher, I realized something. This was my purpose. Not just running a business, but helping other women find their strength. Helping them realize they didn't have to be victims, that they could fight back, that they could win. That night at book club, I shared what had happened with Linda. The other women nodded, understanding in their eyes. We'd all been there, betrayed, broken, but not defeated. "You know what I realized?" said Margaret, a retired teacher who'd divorced her husband after 30 years. "Men like that, they think we're weak. They think we'll just roll over and accept whatever scraps they throw us." "But we're not weak," added Diane, a lawyer who'd caught her husband embezzling from her firm. "We're warriors." Patty raised her wineglass. "To Ruth, for showing us all what it means to fight back." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Ruth." I smiled, feeling tears prick my eyes. Not sad tears, grateful tears. Because these women, this community, had saved me as much as I'd saved myself. A week later, Troy came over for dinner. He'd been doing better, seeing a therapist, working through the betrayal. And slowly, he was healing. We sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over the rose bushes. He was quiet, but it wasn't the broken silence of before. It was contemplative. "Mom," he said finally, "can I ask you something?" "Anything, baby." "How did you do it? How did you stay so strong through everything?" I thought about it for a moment. I didn't feel strong at the time. I felt broken, devastated. Like my whole world had collapsed. "But you didn't let it destroy you." "No, because I realized something." I turned to look at him. "Your father didn't define me. Our marriage didn't define me. I defined me. And once I understood that, everything changed." Troy nodded slowly. "I keep thinking about Becca, about how I thought she was the one, how I was going to propose." "I know. And then I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone again." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "You will. It'll take time, but you will. Because not everyone is like your father and Becca. There are good people out there. People with integrity. People who will love you the way you deserve to be loved." "Like Jade?" I smiled. Jade was the nurse he'd been seeing. She was kind, honest, and treated Troy like he hung the moon. "Yes, like Jade." He smiled back. A real smile this time. "I think I'm going to ask her to move in with me." "That's wonderful, baby." "Thanks, Mom. For everything. For being strong when I couldn't be." I kissed his forehead. "That's what mothers do." 8 months after the divorce, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. "Hello? Ruth, it's Grant." My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard his voice in months, hadn't wanted to. "What do you want, Grant?" There was a long pause. Then, I wanted to say I'm sorry. I laughed, but it wasn't kind. "You're sorry? After everything you did, you think sorry is enough?" "No, I know it's not. But I needed to say it. I destroyed everything. The business, our family. Troy won't even talk to me." "Can you blame him?" "No." His voice cracked. "I blame myself. Every day. I see what I threw away, and I hate myself for it." Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, to gloat, to tell him he deserved every bit of suffering he was experiencing. But another part, the part that had healed, that had grown, just felt pity. Grant, I said quietly, I can't absolve you. What you did was unforgivable. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed our son. You tried to steal everything I worked for. You chose someone else over your family. I know. But I forgive you. Not for you. For me. Because holding on to anger and hatred was poisoning me, and I won't let you have that power over me anymore. There was silence on the other end. Then softly, thank you, Ruth. I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. Forgiving Grant had been the last piece, the final step in letting go. I didn't forgive him because he deserved it. I forgave him because I deserved peace. And now I had it. A year after the divorce, I threw a party. Not a pity party, not a poor me gathering, but a celebration, a look how far I've come event. Patty helped me plan it. We invited everyone, my book club, my clients, Linda, who'd successfully protected her assets and was now rebuilding her life, Troy and Jade, and even some of Grant's old clients who'd stuck with me through the scandal. The house was full of laughter and music and joy. Real joy. The kind that comes from surviving something terrible and coming out stronger. Troy stood up and clinked his glass, calling for everyone's attention. I want to make a toast, he said, smiling at me. To my mum, the strongest woman I know. She's been through hell this past year. And she didn't just survive, she thrived. She rebuilt a business, helped dozens of women find their strength, and showed me what true courage looks like. Mom, I'm so proud of you. Everyone raised their glasses. To Ruth! I felt tears streaming down my face, but they were happy tears, healing tears. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you all. This past year has been the hardest of my life, but it's also been the most transformative. I learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I learned that betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. And I learned that I don't need anyone to complete me. I'm enough, just as I am. The room erupted in applause. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. The jasmine was in full bloom, filling the air with its sweet scent. I thought about everything that had happened, the pain, the betrayal, the revenge, the healing. And I realized something. I wouldn't change it. Not because it didn't hurt, it did, more than anything I'd ever experienced, but because it made me who I am now, stronger, wiser, free. Grant thought he could break me. He thought stealing my business and running off with a younger woman would leave me destroyed. But he was wrong. He didn't break me. He freed me from a loveless marriage, from a man who didn't value me, from a life where I constantly made myself smaller to make him feel bigger. And now? Now I was living my best life, running a successful business, helping other women find their strength, spending time with my son, pursuing hobbies, surrounded by people who loved and valued me. I raised my glass to the night sky, to the stars, to the universe. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for showing me my worth. The next morning, I woke up early and went for my run. As I ran through the quiet streets of Charleston, I thought about all the women out there who were going through what I'd gone through. The women who felt invisible, undervalued, betrayed. And I made a decision. I was going to start a non-profit, an organization to help women protect their assets, find resources, and rebuild their lives after betrayal. I'd call it the Phoenix Project, because we all rise from the ashes. I picked up my pace, energy surging through me. This was it. This was my purpose. Not just surviving, but thriving. and helping others do the same. 2 weeks later, the Phoenix Project held its first meeting. 20 women showed up, each with her own story of betrayal and survival. We sat in a circle, sharing our experiences, offering support, providing resources. By the end of the night, every woman left with a plan, a lawyer's number, and most importantly, hope. One woman, Sarah, stayed after everyone else had left. "Ruth," she said, tears in her eyes, "thank you. I felt so alone, so broken. But tonight, I realized I'm not. And if you can survive and thrive, so can I." I hugged her tightly. "You will. I promise you will." A year and a half after the divorce, I ran into Grant at the grocery store. He looked smaller, older, worn down in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with regret. "Ruth," he said, stopping his cart. "Grant." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then he said, "I heard about your non-profit, the Phoenix Project. That's amazing. Thank you. You're helping a lot of people." "I try." Another pause. Then, "I'm proud of you, for what it's worth." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no longing, just nothing. And that's when I knew I was truly free. "Take care of yourself, Grant," I said, and walked away. That night I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the rose bushes and the jasmine. The moon was full, casting everything in silver light. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who folded Grant's laundry and found that hotel keycard, the one who felt her world crumbling. She seemed so far away now, like a different person entirely, because she was. That Ruth had died, and in her place was someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth and refused to settle for less. I smiled, breathing in the jasmine-scented air. Betrayal doesn't break you. How you rise from it defines you. And I had risen, higher than I ever thought possible. 2 years had passed since that day. 2 years since the fire truck, the hospital, the divorce papers. 2 years since I'd watched my old life crumble and built something entirely new from the ashes. I stood in front of the mirror in my bedroom, the same bedroom I once shared with Grant, but it didn't feel haunted anymore. I'd redecorated. New curtains. Soft cream instead of the dark blue Grant had insisted on. New bedding. Lavender and white, fresh and light. New artwork on the walls. Paintings I'd bought from local artists at the Charleston market. This space was mine now. Every corner, every colour, every choice. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was shorter now, cut to my shoulders in soft waves. I'd lost 15 pounds. Not from stress, but from actually taking care of myself. Running every morning. Eating meals I enjoyed instead of cooking only what Grant wanted. My skin looked clearer. My eyes looked brighter. I looked alive again. Downstairs, I poured my morning coffee. The expensive kind I'd always wanted, but Grant said was a waste. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, reviewing the Phoenix Project's quarterly reports. The non-profit I'd started a year ago was thriving. We'd helped over 200 women protect their assets, escape toxic relationships, and rebuild their lives. Women like Linda, who'd become one of my closest friends, and now volunteered at the centre every week. Women like Sarah, who'd left her abusive husband and now ran her own catering business. Women like Margaret and Diane, and so many others who'd found their strength again. My phone rang. It was Linda. "Ruth, good morning. Are you still coming to the centre today? We have 5 new women joining the support group." "I'll be there at 10, I replied, smiling. "Is everything set up?" "Yes. Coffee, pastries from your bakery, and tissues. Lots of tissues." I laughed. Perfect. See you soon. The Phoenix Project Center was located in a renovated building downtown, just 3 blocks from my agency. I'd used part of my divorce settlement to buy the space, and the community had rallied around it. Local businesses donated furniture. Lawyers offered pro bono services. Therapists volunteered their time. The walls were painted in warm, welcoming colors, soft yellows and greens that made the space feel safe. There were comfortable couches, shelves filled with books about healing and empowerment, and a bulletin board covered with success stories and thank you notes. I walked in and saw Linda setting up chairs in a circle. She looked up and smiled. Morning, boss. I hugged her. I'm not your boss. We're partners in this. Fine. Morning, partner. The women started arriving. Some looked nervous, their eyes darting around as if they weren't sure they belonged. Others looked exhausted, like they'd been carrying the weight of the world for too long. I recognized that look. I'd worn it myself, not so long ago. We sat in a circle, and I opened the meeting the way I always did. Welcome to Phoenix Project. My name is Ruth, and I'm a survivor. 2 years ago, I discovered my husband was having an affair with our son's girlfriend. He was planning to steal the business I'd helped build and leave me with nothing. I felt broken, worthless, like my entire life had been a lie. The women listened, some nodding, some wiping their eyes. But I'm here to tell you that betrayal doesn't define you. How you rise from it does. And you will rise. I promise you that. After the meeting, one of the new women, a young mother named Claire, approached me. Ruth, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret what you did? The revenge, I mean? I thought about it for a moment. It was a question I'd asked myself many times over the past 2 years. No, I said honestly. I don't regret holding Grant accountable. I don't regret protecting what was mine. But what I'm most proud of isn't the revenge. It's what I did after. I could have stayed bitter and angry. Instead, I chose to heal. I chose to help others. I chose to build something beautiful from something broken. Claire nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I needed to hear that. That afternoon, I met Patty for lunch at our favourite cafe. She was already there, waving from a corner table with 2 glasses of iced tea waiting. Look at you, she said as I sat down, glowing like you just won the lottery. I laughed. I feel like I did, in a way. The Phoenix Project is incredible, Ruth. Everyone's talking about it. You've helped so many women. We've helped them. You're there every week, volunteering your time. Patty waved me off. Don't be modest. This was your vision. You made it happen. We ordered sandwiches and talked about everything. The centre, our book club, the pottery class I'd joined, Patty's new grandchild. Have you heard anything about Grant? Patty asked carefully. I shook my head. Not much. Last I heard, he was still at that apartment. Lost most of his clients. I think he's working for another agency now, but not running his own anymore. Good, Patty said firmly. He deserves to live with the consequences. He does, I agreed. But I don't think about him anymore. Not really. He's just a chapter in my story, not the whole book. Troy came over for dinner that night. He did that every Sunday now, a tradition we'd started after the divorce. He brought Jade with him, and I could see how happy he was. Really happy. The kind of happiness that comes from being with someone who truly loves and respects you. Ma, dinner smells amazing, Troy said, kissing my cheek. Pot roast, just the way you like it. Jade handed me a bouquet of flowers. These are for you, Mama Ruth. Troy told me you love sunflowers. I hugged her. I do. Thank you, sweetheart. We sat around the table, the three of us, and for a moment I felt a pang of sadness. This should have been 4. Grant should have been here. But then I looked at Troy's smile, at the way he looked at Jade with such tenderness, and I realized something. We were better off without him. We were whole without him. "Mum, I have some news," Troy said, his eyes shining. "What is it?" He reached across the table and took Jade's hand. "I proposed, and she said yes." My heart soared. "Oh, baby. That's wonderful." Jade's eyes filled with happy tears. "I'm so honored to be part of this family, Mama Ruth." I got up and hugged them both, feeling overwhelming joy. My son had found real love. The kind that lifts you up instead of tearing you down. The kind that heals instead of hurts. "I'm so happy for you both," I whispered. Later that night, after Troy and Jade left, I sat on the back porch with a glass of wine. The jasmine was in full bloom, filling the air with its sweet scent. The stars were out, scattered across the sky like diamonds. I thought about the past 2 years, the pain, the anger, the healing, the growth. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who folded Grant's laundry and found that hotel keycard, the one who felt her world falling apart, the one who thought she'd never survive. And I thought about the woman I'd become, strong, independent, purposeful. A woman who'd turned her pain into power, a woman who was helping others do the same. I wouldn't wish betrayal on anyone. The pain of it had been excruciating, but I also wouldn't trade who I'd become because of it. Grant had tried to break me. He'd tried to take everything. But he'd failed, because I was still here, stronger than ever. And I'd built something beautiful, not just for myself, but for hundreds of other women who needed to know they weren't alone. The next morning, I woke up early and went for my run. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. My feet hit the pavement in a steady rhythm, and I felt strong, powerful, free. I ran past the old insurance agency, the one Grant used to run. It had my name on it now. Harper and Associates. I'd turned it into one of the most successful agencies in Charleston, built on integrity and trust. I ran past Becca's old townhouse. A new family lived there now, a young couple with a baby. I'd seen them at the park once, pushing a stroller, laughing together. Life moved on. New stories were written in places where old ones had ended. I ran past the fire station where Troy worked. I could see him through the window, laughing with his crew, probably telling some joke. My son, my pride and joy. He'd healed too. We all had. That afternoon I had a meeting with a reporter from the Charleston Post. She wanted to do a feature on the Phoenix Project. "Mrs. Harper," she said, her pen poised over her notepad, "what would you say to women who are currently going through what you went through?" I took a breath, thinking carefully about my answer. I'd tell them that the pain they're feeling right now is real and valid, that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to grieve. But I'd also tell them that this isn't the end of their story. It's just a chapter, a painful one, but not the final one. And what advice would you give them? Document everything. Protect your assets. Don't let shame or fear keep you silent. And most importantly, remember your worth. You are not defined by someone else's betrayal. You are defined by how you rise from it. The reporter smiled. "That's beautiful and powerful." "It's the truth," I said simply. That evening, I attended a community event at the Phoenix Project. We were celebrating our 1-year anniversary, and the room was packed. Women I'd helped, volunteers, donors, community leaders, all gathered to celebrate what we'd built together. Linda stood up to speak, her voice strong and clear. A year ago, I walked into this center feeling hopeless. My husband was cheating, planning to leave me with nothing. I thought my life was over. But Ruth Harper showed me that it wasn't. She showed me I had power, I had worth, and I had choices. The room applauded, and Linda continued. This center has changed lives. It's given women the tools to protect themselves, the support to heal, and the courage to start over. And it all started because one woman, Ruth Harper, decided to turn her pain into purpose. Everyone turned to look at me, and I felt tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of gratitude, of pride, of overwhelming joy. I stood up and addressed the room. 2 years ago, I thought my life was ending. I'd been betrayed in the worst possible way. I felt broken, worthless, like I'd wasted 22 years of my life. But I was wrong. I hadn't wasted anything. Every experience, good and bad, had prepared me for this moment, for this purpose. I looked around the room at all the faces, women who'd survived, who'd thrived, who'd found their strength again. This center exists because I refused to be a victim, because I chose to fight back, to protect what was mine, and then to use what I'd learned to help others. And now, every woman who walks through these doors gets the same message. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are a warrior, and you will rise. The room erupted in applause, and I felt a deep sense of fulfillment wash over me. This was my purpose. This was my legacy. Later that night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the jasmine and the rose bushes. The moon was full, casting everything in silver light. I thought about Grant, not with anger anymore, not even with pity. Just with acceptance. He'd made his choices, he'd faced his consequences, and now he was living with them. I thought about Becca. She'd disappeared after the scandal, and I'd heard she'd changed her name and moved to another state. I hoped she'd learned from what happened. I hoped she'd become a better person. But that was her journey, not mine. My journey was here. In this house I'd reclaimed. In this business I'd rebuilt. In this community I'd created. In this life I'd designed for myself. I smiled, breathing in the jasmine-scented air. I was 52 years old, and I was just getting started. The final lesson I'd learned from all of this was simple but profound. Betrayal doesn't break you unless you let it. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be a victor. You can let someone else's actions define you, or you can define yourself. I chose victory. I chose strength. I chose myself. And in doing so, I'd not only saved myself, I'd helped save hundreds of others. Grant had tried to destroy me. He'd plotted and schemed and betrayed me in the worst possible way. But in the end, he'd given me the greatest gift. He'd shown me who I really was. Not a doormat, not a victim, not someone who would accept scraps and call it love, but a warrior, a survivor, a woman who knew her worth and refused to settle for anything less. I sat down at my laptop that night and started writing. Not just my story, but a guide for other women, a handbook for survival, a roadmap for healing. Because if my pain could help even one woman find her strength, then it had all been worth it. And as I typed, I realized something beautiful. The jasmine outside my window no longer reminded me of loneliness. It reminded me of resilience, of rebirth, of the fact that even after the darkest winter, spring always comes. Grant had planted seeds of betrayal, but I had grown a garden of strength, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever created. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if you've been betrayed, if you've been lied to, If someone tried to steal what's yours, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You are not weak. You are not defined by what was done to you. You are defined by how you rise. And you will rise. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But one day, you'll wake up and realize that the pain that once consumed you has transformed into power. The betrayal that broke your heart has rebuilt your strength. The person who tried to destroy you has actually set you free. And when that day comes, you'll look back and realize that you didn't just survive, you thrived. So, to anyone out there who needs to hear this, hold on, keep fighting, protect what's yours, and never, ever forget your worth. Because you are stronger than you know. You are more valuable than anyone who betrayed you could ever understand. And your story isn't over. It's just beginning. Thank you for watching. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. Share this with someone who needs it. And subscribe to Aunt Uju Voice for more powerful stories that inspire, uplift, and remind you of your strength. Until next time, remember, betrayal doesn't break you. How you rise from it defines you. And you, my friend, were born to rise.